Welcome to this space today. Lovely to see so many of you. Quite a lot to say, and what I wanted to say. Somebody said something about the texture and how important it is. How beneficial it felt for that person to feel the texture of the breath. I do recommend that if you connect to the texture of the breath, if you are somehow able to feel that texture of the breath, it also means that there is a sense of being embodied, and we need to keep that connection with the body, because it's so easy with practices like Tonglen or the Metta Bhavana to disappear into thinking and to disappear into a whole narrative. And that's kind of like means that you're not in touch with the body anymore. So keeping that connection with the thread is certainly going. The texture of the breath is certainly going to help us. Last week, I invited you to participate in the spirit of experimentation. So let's not take it too seriously, and we're just trying this out. It's no. Nothing wrong with you or us if we don't manage, if it doesn't work. Let's just try it out and see if it works for us. What I also said last week, that when we tried, I think last week I found it important to get more familiar with the mechanics of the practice, because often, even when you're starting engaging with this practice, it's just difficult to do all these different things at the same time. So we got the breath, we got the in breath, we got the texture, and we've got the kind of the out breath, and then we're imbuing that with wishes, and we are turning towards suffering. So there's all that stuff going on. So getting the mechanics in place is a good way to start. So just first focusing on the breath, and then sort of trying to get into the rhythm, and then starting to imbue, as it were, that rhythm with your mind. You're pairing it, you're marrying it, as it were, with your mind. And also from last week, this sense of the body on the ground, which is also, similar to embodiment, feeling that body on the ground, that groundedness. We all need to, I think, keep using our common sense, although the imagination can take us to wonderful places. So somehow keeping the feet firmly planted in the earth somehow. And then another pointer from last week, we are starting the practice with an idea or a moment of spaciousness, and often our thoughts, it just feels like our mind can be quite crowded with thoughts. So we're trying to get a glimpse of what it is like if that thought world is a bit less crowded, if we get a glimpse of the spaciousness, which is the nature of the mind, the spaciousness behind the thoughts, the spaciousness underneath the thoughts. I don't know where it is, but there is spaciousness. I know that, and the practitioners that have gone before us have told us that spaciousness. So getting a sense of that, and not trying to figure everything out by thinking about things, but just trying to feel your way into it. Anyway, that's actually quite enough maybe for this session, but I had a lot more that I wanted to address here. So today I thought, let's focus on this turning towards suffering. So I'll say a few words about that, and before I do that, I just wanted to tell you about the structure of this particular session. So this session, I'll be speaking for another 10 minutes, I think, and then we'll be doing the practice. I'll guide us through a Tonglen practice, and after that we'll have a 10-minute break, and after the break I might say a few more words, and then we'll do another practice which is a bit shorter than the first practice, and then that takes us to 10:30. I think we'll go into the breakout groups, which is an opportunity to then exchange ideas and thoughts views and experiences about the practice we've done today so far. And then we come back again in the larger group and see if there's anything anyone wants to say at that stage, and if there's any way to respond to that. So that's our structure for today and for the following sessions. Hope that's okay. So in terms of turning towards suffering, what seems to happen is that the mind, when any difficulty or when we feel difficult emotions, when anything like that is happening, the mind seems to be narrowing down quite a lot. So you just get this sense of maybe being a bit blinkered, or maybe it is a bit like being contracted, or maybe, I think I spoke last week about this sense of claustrophobia. It is maybe a bit like that. So this whole sense of spaciousness gets a bit lost, and we're very much sort of narrowed down. Very difficult to also just see the wider perspective on our problems, on the situation. So anyway, that is one of the reasons why I think we do suffer. But somehow the Tonglen seems to counteract that. So the Tonglen is all about like opening up and opening up to that suffering. So we feel that contraction, we want to contract, we want maybe to hide, or we don't want to be there because it's just a bit too difficult. But what the Tonglen invites us to do is to open up to what is difficult. And that is often felt by people to be counterintuitive. But the thing about suffering is it's not going to go away if we ignore it. It's not going to go away if we back away from it, but it is only going to go away when we face it and look it in the eye, and when we have the courage to open up to it. And it is sometimes, I must say, a bit too difficult. I totally understand that we can't do this. I sometimes can't do that either. So, but it's that sort of willingness and maybe also wisdom to know that this is the way to go. The way to go is to open up rather than to contract. So I think that might be helpful. So we're conditioning ourselves to narrow down, but what we need to do is actually to engage with it and to open up. And I thought I just wanted to refer back to the Four Noble Truths of the Buddha for this, because we've got the truth of suffering. We've got the truth of the origin of suffering. I'm just sort of going through them to remind you. And we've got the truth of the cessation of suffering, and we've got the truth of the noble path leading away from suffering. Well, that's, I think most of us do know the Four Noble Truths, but it isn't at the center of the Buddha's teachings for nothing. It is said that all these teachings of the Buddha leading to one thing, which is liberation for suffering, and all the teachings are geared up to addressing the problem of our suffering, as it were. But the thing is, if we address our suffering, if we open up to it, if we investigate it, if we approach it with care, that means that that is our path out, as it were. So that is the beautiful thing about this. It's like when we open up to suffering, we're engaging with finding a way out. So I think that's just fantastic. So you could say that the truth of suffering is whatever you're feeling in your experience right now, that is of the nature of suffering. That's what we're talking about. That is what we're talking about. We're not necessarily in the practice talking about the suffering that's happening elsewhere. I know that's happening, or the suffering from yesterday or the future, but we're talking about what do we find right now in our experience. That is our material. And this could be of the nature of dissatisfaction, or it could be a sense of discomfort, or it could be a sense of unease, but we're sensing it directly. So that is what we are exploring in our experience, and through exploring it, we're going to get that opportunity to come out of it again somehow. And you could say that in your experience, that suffering It's a big word, I know, that emotional pain. You could feel it maybe a bit like tensing up or contracting or unease. So that's interesting to explore. If you find that in your experience, that's something that you could start working with. If it's small, it's a great thing, or it's a bit bigger, whatever. It doesn't matter. When it's in your experience, you can work with it. And so we can then start breathing it in and engaging with it somehow. And then in the breathing in, we're also starting to become more aware of what it actually is that we're dealing with here. We're getting a bit more clarity around it. And then in the breathing out, we're breathing out something that's helpful. We're breathing out something that's supportive. In the breathing out, our deeper wisdom, it's not our wisdom. It's like wisdom isn't ours. It's just a universal kind of quality to tune into. But from that deeper space, something comes that will help or support. And in that process of engaging with what is difficult right now and finding the answer, finding what might help, there is more clarity about what it actually is that you might need. So, and through doing that, I think often you might find that your mind space does transform and qualities do transform. So I wanted to read you out a quote from Thanissaro, a Buddhist teacher, and I'm reading. It's from the Pali tradition. We're in the Tibetan tradition, but it doesn't matter. It's all about the Dharma, isn't it? But I'll read this out because I really love this quote. So we focus on suffering, he's saying, because it's a learning opportunity. In fact, the Buddha actually has us treat suffering with respect. He calls it a noble truth. It's not just any everyday, ordinary old truth. He says to look at it as a noble truth, something worthy of respect, something worthy of comprehension. Really look into it, he says. Don't dismiss it. Don't try to run away from it. Open yourself up to learning from it. Well, I thought that would really suit our intention here today. So the invitation is to turn towards this suffering with curiosity and respect and care and looking into it. And if it's too much, do look after yourself. And you don't want to get overwhelmed, and then we can take a little break in the practice. I think I've led the practice in that way last week. Okay, well, hopefully that will set us up for the practice, and I think I've said most of the things I wanted to say. So we're working with what's happening in our own experience right now, trying to stay embodied with that. And if you are feeling a bit tender or a bit overwhelmed at the moment, maybe just focus on something that's a bit smaller today, like, the pain in your toe or something, yeah? Or you not being able to buy the right tea in the supermarket or something, yeah? So, don't make it too difficult for yourself. And any discomfort or in relation to the practice, you could use in the practice. And also you could just breathe in thoughts if you like. You breathe in anything at all. So just a few things. Everything can be used for the practice. And what everything is our experience right now. And it doesn't matter what it is that we're feeling today. We could just work with it. This is our gold. This is our material. This is our way out, as it were, or our way to stay in and be sane, something like that. I don't know where we're going. We're still here, I think. Anyway, let's do some practice before I get too confused. So let's just let's try to find a posture that we can sit in for a while, meditating for about half an hour. And you might want to switch your camera off or keep it on. It's nice to know that you're there anyway. So it's up to you, however you feel most at ease. And then we're not machines, we can't switch ourselves on and off, so we do need a bit of time, I think, to make that transition to sitting here, engaging, and then engaging with our own experience. I think the practice works best if you have your eyes closed, but if that doesn't feel okay, you could just lower the gaze. That might also be a way to do the practice. So we're just settling in. I'm getting a sense of some sort of spaciousness. Spaciousness around you, above you, behind you, underneath. Feeling the weight of the body dropping down as we're taking our seat. Stepping into a long lineage of Tonglen practitioners, starting with Niguma and Sukhasiddhi. And maybe even before. So you can get a sense of spaciousness, a bit like seeing the sky between the clouds. The sense of spaciousness we might experience when looking out over a sea. I could even imagine breathing in the fresh air. And there's also spaciousness in the breath, in the body. You only have to find it, tune into it, allowing it to affect us. Sensing the spaciousness between the thoughts, anything is possible in the world of the mind. And then from here, turning towards the breath. So just allowing the breath to do whatever it does best, do its job. And starting to pay attention to the in-breath and the out-breath, clearly knowing a breath is coming in and clearly knowing a breath is coming out, feeling that texture of the breath as we do this. And if the breath doesn't feel comfortable, do feel you could just rest before you come back to it, approaching it with kindness. So getting a sense of the in-breath and the out-breath. And now we can start on the out-breath by marrying, imbuing that out-breath with well-wishing for ourselves. And we could just do this until it feels fairly natural. You can send yourself warmth and care. Your solidarity and support on the out-breath. And when the mind wanders off, which is bound to happen, don't give yourself a hard time, but just gently come back to the breath. And then starting to tune into anything in our experience right now that might be uncomfortable. Uneasy. And we're turning towards that by gently breathing that in. And then breathing out whatever we need, whatever is helpful. And we don't need to produce whatever is helpful, we don't need to produce the care, we can just trust it coming from a large space beyond what we can imagine, maybe even. tuning into unease, discomfort on the in-breath, breathing out whatever is helpful. Breathing out ease. Breathing out your empathy. And any reactions to the practice, we could just also just breathe in. Breathing out acceptance, respect. And when it gets a bit too much, you can take a little break, a little holiday. Coming back to the texture of the breath, and also reminding ourselves that what we're breathing in isn't solid. What we're breathing in is made out of the nature mind. Whatever that is. But let's not worry about that too much. Breathe in anything that feels uneasy, tight. constrictive. Breathing out spaciousness, openness. So you could keep going with the suffering or pain or difficulty you're experiencing for yourself, sending well-wishing, whatever's helpful to yourself. But you could also join in with this next step, which is we're pairing our suffering that's happening right now for us with the suffering of all the other people, maybe in the Zoom space or far, far beyond. Anyone out there who might experience the same kind of suffering as I do right now. And we're breathing that in. All of that, and then on the out breath, sending all of us, including ourselves, whatever is helpful. Breathing out our tenderness and care. You get a bit tired, do take a little break. We don't want to exhaust ourselves. But if you feel happy to continue pairing our own unease, maybe fear, despair, with others out there, close to us or further away. Breathing out what's helpful. And what we're breathing out is coming from that infinite space of wisdom that we can all tune into. All breathing in the world. all this human suffering, mind-made. Breathing out our understanding, our compassion. Feeling the texture of the breath, keeping that connection with the body. Breathing in that feels restrictive. Blocking. Breathing out, a sense of freedom perhaps. But whatever you feel, you know, is most helpful right now. And if you want to continue, do feel free to do so. But as we're entering the last 5 minutes of the meditation, I suggest we could drop the imbuing of the breath with our wishes, the turning towards the difficulty, just letting that go. And keeping the posture, the connection with the body. Still in your seat. And just allowing experience to do whatever it wants to do. Just sitting in the posture for a few more minutes. Maybe getting a sense of spaciousness somehow around, within. But maybe that's just not how it is. Just sitting in the world. Well, welcome back after the practice, and also welcome Virya Dana. I hadn't seen your message until just now, so welcome to this space. So time for a break, I would think. A cup of tea maybe, or turning the heating up, which I'm gonna do. And yeah, so do look after yourself, and we'll see each other back here for another practice, slightly shorter than the one we've just done. And let's just come back at 5 past, if that's okay. Yeah? I think that's all. We're all in a whole hour, aren't we? Well, that's at least that's for sure. So 5 past, yeah? See you then. Back, everyone, from your break. I'm still looking at people's screens and what you're doing there with your cups of tea or coffee, whatever it is. Yeah. So any kind of queries, questions about the practice week, maybe save them for later. We have some time for that towards the end of the session. Might want to write them down if you want to not forget them. And also after this period of practice that we're going to do now, we'll have some time to talk to each other about how the practice has gone and anything that we have found, or if you know, for as much as you would like to share that. Obviously it's not obligatory. So yes, so the invitation is here just to look after ourselves as well as we can. And I particularly think with this practice that I do sometimes find myself getting a bit tired. I don't know whether any of you have noticed that, or maybe it's just something that I'm experiencing. But so for me, yes, I think that taking a little break in the practice really works for me. So I really encourage you to do that if you feel that. Don't need to push yourself, don't need to to put a lot of effort in. Just kind of keep it a bit light and remembering that spirit of experimentation. Maybe that's helpful. It's helpful for me. That's why I'm saying it to you. Yes, that's lovely, isn't it? The sense of connection somebody's saying about the Zoom space. And in that sense it is, the mind space is incredible, isn't it? Because I mean, this is not that different from the space of the mind in a particular way. It's just incredible, that flexibility of the mind, that now you're doing this, I'm looking outside, and now I'm looking here, and now I'm looking at one particular person and looking at their glasses, and it's just incredible how the mind can just shift to whatever it turns its interest to. So what we're doing here is trying to turn our interest to our own experience, and whatever might not be so very pleasant, or suffering, and bigger suffering we've heard as well in the chat. So Anna, I'm really wishing you well with that. It's incredible as well that yes, obviously in our times of difficulty there will be some sort of spaciousness around. Any practice that we're doing is going to be incredibly useful in our time of difficulty. And this is the thing, isn't it? It's like when we're doing really well, when we're healthy, and when we might sometimes forget to practice, but it's the moments that we're actually really capable of practicing that we probably need to use that, because we're going to benefit from it later on. When difficulty kicks in, our practice is going to help us, and particularly any practices connecting to the breath is going to help us later on in our lives as well. So yes, let's keep practicing. I can't stress this enough. We do really need to keep practicing, I think, and it'll help us later on, because it's become a habit. We've sown the seeds in our mind stream, and they'll come up for us later in the future. Okay, so we're going to do some more Tonglen practice. This is a period of 20 minutes, and again, trying to find a posture that we can sustain for 20 minutes without putting too much effort into keeping the body upright, or so feeling the way into the body, if that's possible. Whatever we're meeting today in our experience is our material, so for now just connecting to the posture, feeling the weight of the body, and also perhaps again getting a glimpse or a sense of that spaciousness that's always there as a backdrop. And sometimes getting crowded out by our thoughts and emotions, sensations, but always there is this large, infinite container, as it were, if that makes sense. A space where wisdom is born, where love and compassion is born. The whole space that enables that incredible flexibility of our minds. And then when you feel you're ready for it, starting to tune into the rhythm of the breathing. Receiving the breath, expelling the breath. You could receive the breath with kindness and curiosity. Getting a sense of its texture, a very subtle texture of the breath. And then, if any sense of discomfort is present right now, starting to breathe that in, breathing out what's helpful. Maybe you don't find anything that's difficult, that feels painful. In that case, you could also turn towards whoever else in the world might be suffering. But if you do find something, we could just start by breathing that in. It could be a whole situation, it could be even a person, it could be a thought, a feeling, a sensation, an emotion. Whatever you find in your experience right now, we'll work with that. And remembering it's not solid. Whatever we're breathing in. And what we're breathing out is not coming from us, but just from that universal space. Of love and passion, wisdom. Allowing that to flow out on the out breath. Anything in the body that feels tense, contracted, we could breathe in, sensing our way into it, and breathe out our support. And do feel free to allow the breath to come and go without attempting anything. Taking a little break if that's what you want to do, that's what you might need. And any difficulty, thoughts about the practice, you could also breathe them in. Breathing out. Understanding. Acceptance. Keeping it light. Maybe getting a sense of play. If you feel tense, breathe it in, breathe out, relaxation, ease. Breathing in overwhelm, breathing out spaciousness. Breathing in anxiety, breathing out calm. Breathing in the texture of the breath. Breathing out the texture of the breath. Breathing in any trying to figure it out. Breathing out openness, spaciousness. Being at ease with not knowing. And we could now, if we want to, start widening out to include anyone near us or further away, suffering from the same kind of thing as we do. Or we could just keep going with ourselves, it's up to you. Anybody out there who's also anxious or worried, suffering loss, breathing out our solidarity. Anybody out there suffering from confusion, like myself, breathing it in, breathing out clarity, focus, well-wishing. Still feeling the body seated. Any discomfort in the body can also be folded into the practice. All these people out there suffering from discomfort in the body. Breathing out ease. And as we're coming into the last 5 minutes of the practice, you might want to just continue with this for a bit longer, or letting go of trying to practice and just sitting with the body and the breath on the ground. Taking our seat in the whole lineage of practitioners of Tonglen, or just as an ordinary human being trying to do their best. Maybe getting a sense of spaciousness around us or in the breath, in the body, all around. Breathing in the world. Resting. And then, as we're entering the end of the practice, entering the Zoom space again, just in your own time, re-engaging with us here today. So the next bit is that we'll be speaking to each other in the breakout groups, and Kusala Devi is forming groups of small groups of 4 people. So I do hope you'll join in. It's good to talk about the practice. I think I don't think we talk about our meditation practice very much, but do look after yourself and don't need to speak about anything that you don't want to speak about. Just see what's here. Okay, yeah. Someone's asking for the reference about the quote I used. I'll look that up when you're in the breakout groups and stick it in the chat, so you'll meet it there later. So Kusala Devi is creating groups of 4, and then when she's ready, she's going to open the group. So the invitation is to speak about the practice and to keep talk about your own experience. I think that might be most useful, rather than what's happening out there, talking about what's happening with us, and maybe we benefit from that. You're ready, Kusala Devi, with the breakout groups, forming them?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, so see you in, I think it's 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Sounds long, it isn't long, I guarantee that. And make sure everybody gets a chance to speak, okay? Someone sent me a message asking where can I find that quote, the Thanissaro quote. So I've just put a link, pasted a link in the chat, and to those of you who might not be so internet savvy, you could just, well, maybe you don't want to click on it now, but you can click on it just before you leave the meeting if you're afraid that you'll lose us. but so anyway, that's the quote. It's on Access to Insight, and it's by Thanissaro. I've been finding it. Oh, somebody can't see the link. Is that, yeah, it's in the chat. The link is in the chat.
No, it's not.
It isn't in the chat.
No.
Kusala Devi, can you not see the link?
I can, yeah. Maybe it was just before, maybe the people that were still in breakout.
Okay, yeah, what I'll do, okay, I'll put it there again. Maybe that's, people see it now? Sorry to be so, yeah? Okay, yeah, I think I must have pasted it just before you came out of the breakout groups, and that's another piece of learning for us here, for me at least. The deep beauty, yeah, lovely, thank you. Okay, so we've got some time, and this is a space where we're all together, and we are all together, in fact, in this space, and just a space where anyone who would like to say anything, there's Hester who's put her hand up, so we'll go to her first. And so just to finish my sentence, yes, anyone who would like to share anything about the practice, particularly, not about anything else, I don't think, but about the practice. And then, let's see if there's some sort of answer, or somebody might want to respond, or let's see. So we got Hester first. So would you like to say?
Sure.
And then we've got Mandy. Yeah.
My question's really just for asking for a bit of advice, really, about when to practice the Tonglen. So I forgot to practice this week. I just got caught up in my week, and I did a bit of my regular meditation, but I just forgot about Tonglen. And when I look back, I had a really anxious morning, and it would have been really helpful. So is it something to make quite formal, or is it something to use more ad hoc when you need it, but there's that risk of forgetting it exists?
That's a good question, isn't it? Yeah, thank you. I'm sure that a lot of people have similar kind of queries. And I think that as we're sitting here together for these weeks, that's the duration of the course, I think what we're also doing is like we're planting the seeds for the practice. So we're kind of making a bit of a go with, if we don't do the practice regularly, to familiarize ourselves with the practice, which just means that in the future, the chances that we remember to do the practice are going to increase. If you see what I mean, if you do the practice, you're just going to remember doing it. I mean, it's as simple as that, I think. But we do need to train ourselves to do that. But as we are doing the Tonglen practice with any kind of meditation, we're training our minds, aren't we? And as we're training our minds, we're also training our brain. So what could also happen is that because we're in the meditation, finding that suffering, remembering maybe because we've been practicing to turn towards it, then the chances are that we remember to do the practice. But the thing about this practice is that you can do it anytime you like, in the sense of you could even do it when you're in a meeting, for instance, or you can do it when you're having a difficult conversation. And from my own experience, I can tell you that I was in a group context a few years ago where a situation occurred and I found myself getting really bored and fed up. And I knew that if I was going to go with that, it wouldn't really help the situation, would it? So what I started to do is just in the group context that I was facilitating, breathing in that whatever I was experiencing, the boredom and a slight sense of aversion, and then breathing out as well that person that somehow seemed to have triggered that. So breathing that all in and breathing out my understanding, my feeling at ease, my sense of like we're humans together, something like that I started to do in that moment. And it just seemed like the atmosphere just changed in that group somehow. It just seems like there is a shift, and it became softer and it became more inclusive, it became warmer. So for me, that was just such a beautiful demonstration of how this could be. And if you do remember to do this, you might want to try it out. If you are finding yourself in a difficult conversation with someone, someone told me a few days ago that I recommended they were going to do a difficult conversation, and he'd stuck a note on his laptop saying, remember to do the Tonglen. So you could just do that in a difficult conversation. Just breathe in that your own irritation and frustration or humiliation, whatever it is, and breathe out a sense of openness, breathing out a sense of connectedness, and somehow that magically seems to work. So that is one part, I think, of what you were saying, Hester. But I recommend, as we're doing the course, I was forgetting to ask you last time. I look at my notes, I thought, oh no, I forgot you to ask you to do some home practice. So the home practice would have been just do the practice a few times. So that might help, Hester. So if I ask everyone to do that, to do the practice, just maybe a few times, you could do it 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Just do it like 3 times minimum in the next week. And then if that works for you, you could do a bit of writing about it, like just a few minutes or 5 minutes of writing about the practice afterwards, and just what you found, what struck you, anything really, just to make that planting the seed a bit more firm, the kind of connecting to the practice, familiarizing yourself with the practice, and getting a sense of more clarity around it. Anyway, that would be my long answer to your very simple question, Esther. So I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And Mandy, you wanted to share something or say something? Yeah.
Bodhi. Yes, as we were going through the practice and you were talking and guiding, you talked about the wisdom not being ours and the wisdom that's out there.
Yeah.
I'm just if you could say a little bit more about that, please.
Yes, thank you. I knew I was kind of skirting around that a bit, so yes, that's good to address that pesky. Well, I don't know, that issue. Yeah. So I think often what might happen is in the practice that you're sensing that what you're breathing out, like in the Metta Bhavana, I think that you're thinking like, oh, I've got to produce this metta, I've got to it's got to come from me. And I don't know about you, but if I do the practice like that, it's just not very successful, because I get really I start to feel like, oh my God, I can't do it, and I start to feel bad about myself, all of that. So So whatever you're breathing out isn't coming from a space that is how you perceive your mind in the here and the now, which is in itself an amazing thing. It's like how I experience my mind right now is incredibly boundaried, if that makes sense, because the mind in itself, it isn't really a thing, but it is just there is no boundaries, there are no walls, there are no restrictions. But the restrictions are how it's the confinement of our own difficult emotions, our own misunderstandings, our own kind of in that moment, our kind of something is there that constricts our minds. But we know that the mind is open. Do you get that sense? We know the mind is open. It's actually in the Satipatthana Sutta as well as something that is incredibly beneficial to notice that whatever my mind state is now, this is not the end of it. The mind state I'm having now, there is something beyond it. It's finite. It is restrictive. Do you see what I mean there? So the mind state I'm having now is not how the mind is. The mind is much more spacious, is much more open. It's our kind of, well, you could say ego clinging that constricts us. So if that would drop away, what's left is just an open space where anything could just come up and happen. And we're told it is a space of an unobstructed space. It's a bit like an open sky with the sun in it. It's lovely and warm and all these beautiful things can come out of it. And this is somehow what we believe the mind is when the obstructions aren't in place. So what we're breathing out is not coming from how I am right now, but it is coming from something that doesn't have any of those restrictions that we have we haven't really consciously created it, but these restrictions aren't there. Does that make any sense at all, Mandy, or is it too abstract? You tell me.
It's quite difficult.
Yeah.
I think I can see what you're getting at there.
Yeah.
So is it almost like knowing that we're restricted and trying to be more than that or go beyond that? Was that it's probably a bit too thinky? Your meditation.
Yes, that's a good way of explaining it, because I think that it is, if we're not going to understand that from that point of view of thinking or thinking about it, it's just something more to kind of to sense and to drop your way into. So there isn't any effort involved either. So like, it's not like we're knitting up our response. We don't need to kind of put any effort because it's already there. So sometimes I'm using like the sky and the ground for that kind of purpose. So the ground we're sitting on, the sense of groundedness and robustness and stability that's underneath us, I feel that right now. It's in my being right now, and there's no reason why I couldn't breathe that out and wish that to others. The spaciousness that's around me right now in the air, etc., there's no reason at all why I can't just breathe that out. It isn't anyone's, it's just spaciousness. So it's the me and the mine that we somehow need to sort of drop out of. But I hope I'm not sort of wound myself in knots here. But I'm just trying to address it, because I think, Mandy, that your question is probably a question that a lot of other people are also empathizing with. But I'm hoping to convey that yes, it is a bigger container, but actually it's like a container maybe without any boundaries. You see what I mean? There isn't any boundaries there. So the boundaries of the mind is just our thoughts. Our thoughts are what limits our mind. But in that sense, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm trying to refer to the spaciousness between the thoughts and behind the thoughts, because the thoughts can be so convincing that they're like solid. So our thoughts, I've got a fridge magnet, and somebody gave me, and it says, "Don't believe your thoughts," which I think is incredibly useful. So the thoughts are just thoughts, but we believe they're rock solid somehow, but they're not. They're just thoughts. And let's wait for a few seconds and the thought will just sort of dissipate and just fall apart, and it's not there anymore. But it's our mind that believes that these thoughts are actually there. So the mind believes that the mind is limited, but it isn't. It isn't limited, and we know that. And even if we don't know it in our own experience right now, we might remember it from one moment we've had in the past where we did feel that spaciousness, where we did get that, you know, when you're standing at the sea, you get this sense of like, this is not necessarily about me, this is just spaciousness. Or you might remember it some moment in the past when you felt this sense of spaciousness and connection with everything, and so you know it's possible, but it's just not there right now. So you can go back to that memory, and sometimes it helps people. I wasn't going to say this right now, maybe, but I'll say that. It helps people sometimes to think about a wish-fulfilling jewel, but it isn't everybody's cup of tea, these wish-fulfilling jewels. But for some people it really helps. So you get this sort of, the wish-fulfilling jewel is, it just gives what is needed, as it were. So we're breathing in whatever is difficult, and then in this kind of magical, alchemical kind of way, something comes out and it is transformed into something that's helpful and beneficial. And so that might help as well, Mandy, but I'm not sure if you're of the wish-fulfilling jewel variety. But it is something that can help people as well. My God, we're approaching the end. Yes, Sharon? Yeah?
You're saying then, basically, we're the container, right? And then, but we don't tend to see past ourselves. And then, like, if we go out, we feel air on ourselves, but we don't know where that air starts. So by limiting us to that, or like doing a thick coat up in winter when it's cold, we're limiting ourselves right to ourselves and not letting ourselves go free.
Yes, I think that's, from what I could understand from it, I think that's a fair enough summary, isn't it? It's just something about, like, whatever you're giving is going beyond those ego boundaries, and it's going beyond those mind-made restrictions, if that makes any sense. So we're just in the kind of we're just letting go of that. We're just letting go of that. I'm sort of starting to kind of not make sense because I'm starting to be affected by the time. I was quite tempted in the Tonglen practice to put in something about the breathing in the suffering relating to time. I didn't do that. I thought this is going too complicated, but there is so much suffering relating to how we are restricted about time and how we think about time and how that restricts us. Anyway, I notice now, just because of the time, that I feel a bit more restricted, and anyway, I'd like to come to a conclusion because we're going over the time. I know people have got places to go. I do thank you for your coming here, and I also like to ask, just on behalf of the Buddha Center online, and Kusla Devi is here. She's part of the team running the Buddha Center online. And if you do have any extra money and you'd like to support them, and yes, could you please then respond to the call that Kusla Devi is going to stick in the chat. But anyway, I'm just going to look at the chat here. Yeah, thank you so much, and hope to see you next week. And thank you for all the lovely comments in the chat. And hopefully, Maria, Jose, we won't be so bad next week. And yes, very lovely to spend time with you here today. And hopefully you'll do a bit of practice, a Tonglen practice in the next week. And you might make some notes, and then we'll come together. Next week, we're going to talk about imagination and playfulness, etc. So that's, yeah. And well done, Barbara. It's all gone really well. Yeah, thanks for coming.